It's odd that it worked the first time. Okay. All right. So there were questions, and the biggest thing that I realized that we had broken, I'll cover first, and that is the buses that we would either jump onto and they'd become our parents, and then we leave it that way and try to jump off, and like we wouldn't get a new parent until we hit a new bus. But that didn't work out so well if the bus we just jumped off of just did a barrel roll and then threw us into the ground and smacked us around. Um, the other way that I really wanted to do it was as soon as you jump off the bus, you're no longer its child. The problem was that the bus was moving along, but we would jump off, and so suddenly we had no velocity and there was nowhere to go. I did play with a few ways to do this. This is the wrong one? Okay, so yeah, I have that in here twice apparently. So here that is again. So I took our move forward. I did play with putting a rigid body and adding force to the rigid body on the buses, but that turned into another nightmare where buses were like flying and doing weird, goofy stuff. Once I just said add force forward, buses just became possessed. So that didn't work out so well. So I still like just the generalized chaos of just transforming forward on the bus. So the only thing I changed here was I added this word public. So I want to get the base bus speed as I jump off of it, which in our case is in this, until I change anything, it's 10 plus or minus 1. So it's somewhere between 9 and 11, whatever that speed is. But I wanted to have access to that. So I just added the word public here to this base bus speed, and that's all I changed in that. And then our magic boots. Well, let me look at it here. So I like changing the name of this to Magic Boots because then I know where it goes. It goes on the player. Okay. So the player here, I added a rigid body. Well, I mean, he had a rigid body, but I made that accessible. And then I've got these two variables here that I've got in the inspector. So I've got a boost multiplier, which is just going to take whatever speed that the bus is going, and you can multiply that. Depending on which force mode you use, that can be a really different thing. And then so then I also added force mode. So if you remember when we were adding force to rigid bodies, there's a force mode we can use, and we just kind of like force mode, force, right? We didn't really look at it a whole lot. This I created. It's an enum, right? It's the same as our weapon 1, weapon 2, shotgun, gun, whatever, right? So it's an enum, and I expose that in the inspector so that in the inspector I can decide which force I want to use, and they do different things, oddly enough. So I'm still doing these on trigger stay. So when I'm on a bus, I become its child, and then if I'm jumping off of a bus, then what I'm doing is I'm creating this number here called bus boost. I'm getting, because of the way my bus is set up, I'm getting other, right? The object that I'm leaving, get component in parent, because it's the actual parent for me that has, I've got my collider. Let me just show you this. Make more sense here. I need a parent because the way I've got this bus set up, my mesh and the collider are this child, but the bus parent that's holding it has got the move forward script and the rigid body. That way I could just swap in whatever mesh I want in here, right? And I needed that parent object because we had to set its pivot point for ground check, and we had to set its pivot and stuff for which way is forward. So the bus is a child. That's the thing that I collided with. And so I'm saying, hey, on the parent, give me the rigid body. So depending on your bus setup, or whatever setup, it may be different. But for me, instead of get component, I say get component and parent. All right. So I'm not even looking at its rigid body because we didn't want to force it that way. So I'm getting the component and parent. I'm grabbing the move forward script from it. and then getting its base bus speed, which again, if I didn't change anything in the inspector, it's just some number between 9 and 11. But it's for the bus that I just jumped off of. And then I'm timesing that times my multiplier. And then I'm debug logging just because I want to know what's going on. And then I'm on the player, my rigid body, I'm adding force, the number bus boost on my forward Z, and then times force mode boost, which is the force mode that I exposed in the inspector. And then as soon as I do that, I'm saying, hey, that's not my parent anymore. So that bus can fly off into the ether. We don't care. We're just boosting forward. Before I show you what that looks like, I did want to look at this force mode. So again, this is Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code. I totally got confused what I was even using. The Visual Studio with all the Unity stuff set up. So I'm going to control and double click on force mode here, and we can see the enum and really nicely get everything explained to us. So force adds a continuous force to the rigid body using its mass. There's acceleration that adds a continuous acceleration to the rigid body. Impulse adds an instant forced impulse to the rigid body using its mass, and then velocity change adds an instant velocity change. Maybe that helps you. It's still like some of that's still Greek to me. Like I don't know what you're talking about exactly with all this. Impulse is impulse and force are the ones I was playing with. But I've got access to all of them in the inspector now, so I like that. All right, so we'll look at that. So if you're still on a bus when it goes barreling, and I'm not even ending the game when I hit the ground because I'm too busy experimenting with other stuff. All right, so I can jump. Right, it's not like before when I would just unparent myself and then I'd be standing still in midair like, you know, Wile E. Coyote or something. So it's kind of working for jumping back and forth to the buses. What's funny is I am getting that multiplier, that boost, even when I'm going backwards. So that's a thing. Also, if a bus is trying to move forward but can't, I'm still getting its top speed. All right, so this he's going to be hitting a wall, but when I jump, I'm going to be getting his top speed possible, not the speed he's going. So it's not perfect. And so let me show you on the first person controller. Here's my magic boot script. I added that heading. So my multiplier right now is times 20, force mode, boost, and that just again hits the enum. So let me just show you some ridiculous nonsense. Let's do 500 times the impulse. Yeah, and I just like teleported beyond the buses. So impulse is great. Don't have a super high number on there. Why that bus is still going sideways. Huh. Oop. I was looking up. So this is great for getting a good airtime multiplier here. Just fly off the world and it doesn't stop. Anyway, so impulse definitely gives you more of a boost, but sometimes it's too much at once. So if you're going to use impulse mode, then use a lower number, unless you just think it's funny to leap off and teleport forward. So anyway, I think that solves a lot of the problems with bus parenting. I hope that's our fix for now. And then let me know how bad that gets. So those scripts, I went ahead and put the just the barely updated move forward script from our buses, and then the new Magic Boots version right here on Canvas. I've got that listed as option 1 for standing on moving objects and jumping off of them. The old video I've now got listed as option 2, option 3 through whatever, right? There's 100 ways to do any of this. So if the thing that I came up with isn't working for you, go try something else. Make sense? Sort of. Will it make sense when you're rewatching this at 11:30? Maybe. We'll see. The other thing. Oh, people were asking about nav meshes on the Discord. What are the confusions we have about nav meshes? Let me just go to the record. I thought it was Chris speaking for herself and Jack. She lying.
Oh, like the obstacle moving, obstacle thing.
Okay, so
I mean, it's not like I don't know how. I just haven't done it yet.
okay, so I apologize. I squirreled and was trying to get a nav mesh bus, and it just added more problems. But it was something that I just I was like, oh, maybe that's possible. So I had to squirrel and had to chase that rabbit. What I'm requiring for this is just a nav mesh agent somewhere in your scene. And Josiah's got a great example as soon as his friend's laptop shows up. He's literally got nav mesh giants stomping toward the bus to cause chaos. You can have, goats or sheep crossing the path. Just have something that moves about sort of independently, probably on a patrol pattern, right? Going back and forth between A to B, A to C, whatever. Just something that our whatever we're riding on would crash into and get messed up. Right. So we want static objects like roadblocks, rocks. We want things in the road that are going to cause buses to go woo and flip because we need challenge. And I want at least one obstacle that is a nav mesh, I think, per level. And that, again, that can be, find a really cool animation of a little old lady crossing the street. The good news is the nav mesh should be invincible if you've got it set up right, and the rigid body's on the route with the nav mesh. It can't leave the terrain. It can't be blown off course, especially if you don't have a rigid body on it. So if it's just got a collider and it's nav meshing around, then the little old lady crossing the street can literally have 3 buses hit her, and the buses will flip over the top of her, and she'll just keep going, which is kind of funny. No animals were harmed.
I keep getting this error on the Magic Food script.
Yeah.
It says not accessible to instruction marks.
Oh, yes. I got that. Yeah. So go to your move forward script. Yeah. And then literally all I did was I added the word public in front of base bus speed. So serialized field public float. Did you save the script? Okay.
What if the obstacles make some level hard enough?
So I still want a nav mesh in there somewhere. Right. It could be one thing that maybe 4 out of 5 times our vehicles don't even hit it, but like something moving around that could cause chaos. Just in the matter of we're going through the checkbox. Like, okay, you did this. We just want to. Part of what this is taking a lot of the stuff that we learned already and throwing it all into one bigger project. And then the other part, and sorry, not sorry, Jack, I'm gonna get back to you. Sorry. Is part of it is I wanted to kind of just give, here's the requirements and let you explore. And I understand that causes frustration, but that's the world we live in. That's what being a developer is. Someone's going to give you a bunch of we need a game to do this, and you'd be like, okay, we'll figure out how to do that. So this is kind of my version of a midterm test in that you're having to go back and like, okay, wait a minute, we learned about that. What is that? Yes.
So during
Yes.
First of all, what is that? Second of all, if you think it'd be helpful for how the player connects to in my instance, training, but like the bus in general.
So we could. So the raycast. All right, let's go backwards. So the raycast is it's if you got a rigid body, you have access to a raycast, and it literally from the center of your rigid body or your object, it shoots a laser in whatever direction. You don't ever see it. It just like visually, like sonar, whatever, right? So if my eyes were a raycast, and I'm like suddenly called it in a split second, and it would go out as far as I told it to. It would say, "Oh, I found an Addison over there," and I would know that. That's literally it. And so it's great if you need to know. Like I think the first time we used it was first time I used it. We were trying to figure out where a die in 3D which way it was facing. So we'd raycast up from the one and be like, "Oh, we hit the sidewall." So obviously we're so it's just literally saying, "Hey, is there a thing over there?" And so in that on that was on the moving trucks. Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm doing with that raycast is I'm saying, hey, um, from my position, and then looking down, right? And I made all these variables, and then look down this far. So how far to cast the laser? Did we find anything? Right. So this is kind of a Boolean check. If there's nothing that comes back from this raycast, then we just zapped a laser off into space, and nothing came back. Right. And so if we do get that call back true, then there's something underneath us, and so we keep moving. If there's and then we put a distance on it, look down this far. If we looked out 5 meters and there was nothing, then we stop the bus. But that's all the raycast does is just check to see is there something on the end of this laser, and it gets called like that. So you can make a raycast visible, but it happens so fast, like you wouldn't even really see it. We're just shooting lasers. All right, sorry, Jack, you had a question as well.
I don't know what it's doing, but when I have the magic booster on, and when it's starting to just sort of this, just teleports me away and kills me.
Okay, let me see the settings in the inspector. Okay, pull that boost multiplier way down. Put it to like 20. Yeah, I was doing stupid stuff and just trying to see if it works. Sometimes I crank numbers way up on variables just to see is this even doing anything. Yeah, so you were literally like with that number 1,000, you were like teleport me forward, please.
I'm going backwards.
Yes.
But it's going from one place to another, but like in a rounded.
So, you want something to fly? Okay, so nav meshes literally like say stick to this surface and move along it. So no, no in the air doesn't really work. I think I've seen it if you've got an invisible circle that's hidden, then yeah, it should travel along that. Yeah, it's a good way to cheat it.
Nav links to make it spawn on the archer, and then have the arrow just follow the link.
Never played with that.
Circle.
But yeah, circle sounds good. Just throw a cylinder in there. It should. If you yeah. All right, let's look. Let's look at this. Let's look at this rubric, and then I hope, I don't know, I might have to update this anyway. Okay, we got a start screen with music, and it goes to level 1. Makes sense. So that's to be another scene. or a screen, I guess, but I'd make it a scene. Level 1 exists and is awesome. We can jump on things, can stick to them. Moving platforms that go forward. Oh, we didn't cover that. We'll look at that in a minute. If anyone's confused, particles. We need particles on the moving objects. So dust coming off the wheels or the hooves or whatever, fire, Taco Bell symbols, whatever. Just bake a nav mesh. At least one nav mesh obstacle object. So if you get nav mesh buses to work, great. But I didn't have a lot of luck still. You know, I keep going back to that well. If your arrow is just cruising over the top and it's not in the way, it's not causing potential problems for the buses. Okay. Okay.
I fear if I add anything more, I will rage quit my own game.
Have a nav mesh slowly follow the player. Right? If you happen to get stuck on the last bus or look backwards, there's someone cruising along. Yeah.
Oh, I have tons of that.
Yeah. All right. We need music. We need sound effects. We need win and loss messages. Scoring based on airtime. I was going to show that in a minute. Level reset. I turned mine off so I could test. We need a goal, and please let it be an obvious goal. So, like something in the distance that says, "Hey, here's where you got to go." I think in cluster trucks it actually says goal. Yeah. But don't make me wonder, am I almost to the end or not? And then we need a status screen that shows level time, air time. And then what I would like is in that interstitial scene that's between the levels, like let's let it stay there until the player does something. Don't put a timer on it and say, look, you can look at your score for 5 seconds and then go to the next thing. Let the player enact that. That's just good UI or UX. And it's almost the same criteria. Level 2 is just harder and different. All the things. Another nav mesh agent, obstacles, music, sound effects, win and loss, scoring. Status screen. Pause menu that works on stuff and actually stops time. And then somewhere, yeah, so it is in here. Somewhere you're saving the high score and displaying that somewhere. And then bonuses for more levels, more features, whatever. All right. The airtime is another thing that I think we need to look at, and like saving high scores. Anything else on that list? Yeah.
I asked about the raycast is because there's an extra bit of code in the video, something called ground check. That was applied to the player. Is that useful?
So, which player are you using?
The ones that
Okay. So some of that's gonna change depending on what player you're using. So I'm using the mini first person controller, and he has a thing called ground check on him, which, if I'm not mistaken, is using a raycast. So we can open it up. Yeah, and so he says, remember I said it'll either return true or false when we throw a ray, and so that he's just setting it to a boolean. So if we get something back, then we're grounded. So he's just what I've got on what we had on the DET version of a first person controller was a little trigger at his feet, and we were using that to see if we were on the ground. This is the same thing. It's just using a raycast. But that should be exposed, and you should be able to get is grounded now. And in fact, that leads me to my next thing. So here we go. Keeping score. I think pretty easy, but let me just show what it looks like. So I've got on my canvas, I've got my game overlord because the manager and handler was already taken. And so I've got I'm not even using the high score yet, but I've got a current score. We start at 0. I've got a text that I'm showing the current score on, and this is interesting. Not necessarily required, but I've got a public static copy of myself, and so this is just a singleton. That and this is just a singleton pattern to say I don't want more than one overlord. All right. So if something else comes in and they've got a game overlord, they're going to say, okay, wait a minute, what's going on? If there's already an instance of game overlord somewhere, then I'm the new one and I'll destroy myself. I'll just leave. Huh? Okay. Anyway, that's just some extra stuff I added in there. And so here in my update is what I'm doing. So I'm getting player dude is grounded, and I'm literally just looking for the ground check script off the player. I'm not even just handing it the whole player. I'm just saying here's the script from the player, and I'm hooking that up in the inspector. So if the player is grounded or is not grounded, excuse me, then I'm just adding the current time to my current score. How much time passed since the last update? Because again, update could happen at some variable time. I don't know. So I'm just adding to my current score right now and then putting it on the screen. So current score to screen. So that's this awful text that I just wanted to, mess with. You can crunch that down to ints. I think I saw someone had literally just counting seconds. Mine's counting like micro milli whatever seconds because I've just got a float that I'm not capping. So just in the time it took to start the game, I had almost a half second before I hit this bus. Oh, I boosted too far forward. All right. And so literally every time I jump, it's just I gotta fix my jump. Yeah, I'm jumping too far forward. But every time I'm in the air, right, you see me walking around on the ground. I'm walking, it's cool. I'm in the air. I'm adding time. Yeah, that float going to 0.05931 is a little crazy. So that's all I'm doing right now is just capturing current airtime. That's the number you can play with. That's the number we talked about a lot of different ways on Tuesday. Like I just made it to a new bus. It wasn't just a bunny hop on the bus that I'm on. So here's a multiplier. I was in the air longer than 5 seconds at a time. Here's another multiplier. Like there's a lot of different things we can do with that airtime to give cool scores and things like that. And then I will add in the saving to player prefs, but there is a video for that as well. So that part, I've only got that for 10 points. I feel like it should be more important than that. The total for high score in player prefs is only 10 points worth of 10 points worth of work. I may up that. All right, let me go back here. So that was just the quickest way to get some kind of score. And pause menu, airtime, miss the scoring. Yeah, so there's that score. And then here's this video on saving that number to the thing. What I would do, maybe, is if we wouldn't even maybe save that score unless we finish the level. Yeah, that makes sense. And so probably somewhere in your end level screen when you're saying, "Hey, here's the score you just got. You spent 2 minutes in the air. You're Superman, whatever." Then at that point, I would use the code in here to say, "Save this to the player prefs." Yo.
So regarding the high score, does it have to have the thing where you close out of Unity altogether and then go back in? It still shows the same high score, or could I just do like a more simpler high score where so long as Unity opens, so long as Unity is open.
So the high score for that session.
For that session, yeah.
If you want to lose 10 points, yeah, you can just do that. No, I think the player preps is an important thing, and Matthews used it for like what level you're on, like game saves, how many things you unlocked, right? So this is a good way just to persist data. Back before the Legend of Zelda came out on the NES with a battery in the cartridge, we didn't have a way to do that, except by like little codes. You remember? If well, who's played like the old Mega Mans? There's going to be a few in here. No, okay, just Micah.
Technically, you could say there was a way that I could do those files too. So
Yeah,
if I wanted to, I could just add in like a reset button.
yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, so Mega Man used to like if because you can take it in any order and unlock stuff. There'd be a little password that it set up like in a 3x3 grid. And that's how you save your state before we had batteries in the cartridges. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll let me get through this and then we can look at that. Um, do I need to add in the score persistence as an example, or are we good following the video? Okay. All right. Then I'll do some more one-on-one help. Oh, and then let me just cover that really quick. So I'm gonna go to my prefab of my bus. I want to get out of 2D mode. Buses, horses, dragons, whatever. Probably the other thing we want to do is just generate some particles from the back wheels, side wheels even. It's even more important on well, this one's pretty round. We can't tell, but if we had a bunch of spokes here, and I could look and see that the wheel's obviously not turning, that's kind of what we want to cover up with the particle system. So you can just come in and you just add it as a component. You can add a new particle system, move it around. Let's do that. You can change its thing, but let's just go ahead and give this a child and add the particle to that. So we just more visually move it and stuff. So I'm going to game object, create empty child of the bus, particle holder. And I'll add the particle system to that. Then I can just more visually move it, rotate it. Depending on how it goes. So if you're doing tires like I am, probably one for each tire would make the most sense. So I'll just clone that over. And there's so we're going to get into making our own particle systems in a future thing. So if you find just a good particle system and want to add it to that for this, that's fine. But also if you just got free time, haha, what's that? Then you can explore and make your own particles. But please don't give me pink squares because that's bothering me already. If I have to grade like 20 of these with pink squares, I'll just lose it. Uh, folder. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Dirt, dust, sparkles, whatever. Mhm. All right. I guess for the sake of the video, so I created a new material here, called it particle material. Absolutely misspelled the word material, and then realized I didn't care. So the shader you can get particle materials here. So standard surface is going to have um, shadow and stuff on it. Unlit will be completely no shadows, no light data, but you can make a standard particle and then just add stuff to that. Let me just find a terrible image. Also can't spell particle. I kind of like that. That's terrible. I'm going to use it. Not a WebP. I'm tired of WebPs. It's pretty bad. AV, what the heck is AVIF? What is happening here? Don't like that either. Okay. When the web fails you, make your own. Every time I'm like, really quick, let me show you this, it turns into an ordeal. Oh, honestly? Shoot, we're going to throw up Unity symbols. We're done. That. All right. Or that one. Or that. No, that one's better. Just the kind of ground that they're on. Yeah, it's like that. All right, we'll use this. Texture type, I need to change that to sprite, I believe. All right, and then I will make that the map for this particle material, and then I'll go to this guy and all the way down here, give it that material. And then one for the other wheel. This is going to be the worst thing ever. Oh, I'm still teleporting forward with my jump. Yep. It's pure magic. That's me. I was again. I over amplify things just to see. So I'm on impulse and at 500, which is like. If I pull that back to either force with a low-ish number, or impulse with a lowish number, it shouldn't be as bad. I found it somewhere. I'm sure. Yeah, no, it's around. Oh, that's too many. Ah, it's too much. All right. So don't use that, but use something that looks like particles and dust. Yeah. What?
What is it look? What is it look like?
Oh, because it's not.
It looks
Yeah.
like a five-piece.
It's no. It's a Timu GameCube. It's fine. All right. There's things to be adjusted there. All right. I'm going to end the video and then start looking at individual projects. Definitely want to save this whole scene because, man, it's not often you stumble upon perfection, but here we are.